This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian, and I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
So prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide if the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because this film is lit. If you are not to award me love, then I will indulge in rage, and mine is infinite. It's Frankenstein, and this film is lit. Hello, and welcome back to This Film is Lit, the podcast we talk about movies based on books. We've been waiting to get to this one for a while. We're talking about Frankenstein, so much to get to. Most of our segments, no Guess Who this week, but we do have everything else. So we're going to jump right in. If you have not read or watched Frankenstein, specifically watched, we're going to give you a brief summary right now.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
This is a synopsis of the film Frankenstein 2025, sourced from Wikipedia. Prelude. In 1857, Horizont, a Royal Danish Navy ship sailing for the North Pole, becomes trapped in ice. Alerted to an explosion in the distance, Captain Anderson and his men discover a gravely injured Victor Frankenstein. Upon bringing him aboard, the crew is attacked by a creature who demands Victor's surrender. Anderson uses a blunderbuss to sink the creature into the water. Victor explains that he created the creature and recounts the events leading to its creation. Part 1, Victor's Tale. Victor's mother dies while giving birth to his younger brother William, who becomes the favorite of their renowned aristocratic father. Grieving his mother and resenting his abusive father, Victor becomes a brilliant, arrogant surgeon obsessed with curing death through science. He is expelled from the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh for reanimating corpses, which a disciplinary tribunal denounces as sacrilege. Arms merchant Heinrich Harlander, impressed by his presentation, offers Victor unlimited funding and an isolated tower to continue his experiments under an unnamed condition. Enlisting William's assistance in building his laboratory, Victor becomes smitten with Elizabeth, Harlander's niece and William's fiancée, who declines his advances. When an impatient Harlander demands results within a week, Victor fashions body parts from criminals and soldiers killed in the ongoing Crimean War into a body to reanimate. Harlander reveals he is dying of syphilis and unveils his single condition. He wants his brain transplanted into the body of the creature. When Victor refuses, Harlander attempts to sabotage the experiment but falls to his death. Lightning strikes the creature as planned, but it fails to reanimate. The following morning, Victor finds the creature alive. He marvels at its immense strength and ability to rapidly heal wounds, but can only teach it to speak one word, Victor. Frustrated by his lack of intellectual growth, Victor begins to imitate his father's cruel discipline and becomes afraid of the creature's physical strength. Visiting with William, Elizabeth questions Victor's treatment of the creature and bonds with him, teaching him to speak her name. When William finds Harlander's body, Victor dishonestly claims that the creature killed him in a fit of rage. After sending them away, Victor sets his lab ablaze with the creature inside. Hearing the creature call his name, Victor remorsefully attempts to re-enter the tower, but it explodes, severing his leg. In the present, the creature boards the ship, confronts the captain, and shares his own story. Part 2, The Creature's Tale. The creature escapes the explosion and takes shelter in the mill gears of a family's farm. Over the next year, he secretly helps the family, providing them with large supplies of firewood and building a pen for their sheep. They thank their unseen benefactor as the spirit of the forest. When the rest of the family leaves for the mountains to hunt wolves, the creature befriends their blind patriarch, who teaches him to read and speak fluently. The creature journeys to the ruins of the laboratory, where he discovers the truth about his creation and the address to Victor's estate. He returns to the farm to find the blind man being attacked by wolves, which the creature fights off before comforting his dying friend. The family returns and, mistakenly believing the creature killed the blind man, shoots him. After reviving, the creature realizes he cannot die and will spend eternity alone. He confronts Victor during William and Elizabeth's wedding, demanding the creation of a companion. Victor, fearing the possibility of the creature reproducing, adamantly refuses. The creature attacks him. Hearing the commotion, Elizabeth rushes in and embraces the creature. While attempting to shoot the creature, Victor shoots Elizabeth instead. Williams is wounded while attempting to rush the creature. Before dying, he calls Victor a monster. The creature carries Elizabeth to a cave and comforts her as she dies. Victor pursues the creature to the Arctic, where the creature attempts to destroy himself with a stick of dynamite but fails. A remorseful Victor and the creature reconcile, addressing each other as father and son before Victor succumbs to his injuries. The creature frees the ship from the ice. Anderson decides to abandon his pursuit and sail back home. Alone, the creature reaches out to embrace the sunlight as Victor once taught him. The end. I have so many questions. Let's get into them. Was that in the book?
Gaston, may I have my book, please?
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
Well, some people use their imagination.
So, as the story mentions, or as the summary mentioned, the story starts with a prelude, which is we open on a ship stranded in the ice, and this crew of this ship discovers Victor injured, laying on the ice. And then very quickly, we kind of get this opening action sequence where the creature tries to attack the ship and get Victor back from the ship's crew. And then they fend him off before he sinks into the icy ocean. And then Victor tells his version of the story of how he created the creature. And I wanted to know, and that's where we kind of launch backward into the story from the beginning. And I wanted to know if the book was structured this way.
So the book opens with letters from Captain Walton, whose name was changed for the film, to his sister, detailing his attempt to travel to the North Pole, which is like his passion project in the book. Shortly into the narrative, they see the creature traveling by sled, like from a distance, and they're like, what's that? And then they encounter Frankenstein following him the next day, and he's not doing great. He's like down to one dog and sickly. So they bring him on board the ship, at which point he tells his story to Captain Walton.
So the frame story element of it.
Yeah, the frame story element is from the book.
It's just the movie spices it up and makes it a little more.
Yeah, there's no like big action fight scene with the creature in the book.
Yeah, cool. So they didn't. I don't even remember who asked this question. I think it's the captain asked him this.
Yeah.
Before. Yeah, it's because it's before we get the actual storytelling, and they're talking about because they saw the creature. They heard the creature at least. No, they saw it because it attacked the boat. They saw the creature, and the captain asks him he's like, "Man, that thing is crazy. What is this monster? What manner of devil made him?" And Frankenstein responds by saying, "I did. I made him," which is very dramatic. And I have a lot of questions about lines because we'll get to my feelings on this movie, holding them for now. But it had some incredible bangers of lines throughout, and so I have a lot of questions about like how much of the dialogue came from the book because it was one of my favorite parts of the movie, and I wanted to know if that line came from the book.
I don't think anything like this appears in the book. I tried searching a couple of variations and like different words from this, and I did not come up with anything similar.
Okay. So then, as the summary stated, we flash back and we actually flash way back to Victor's childhood, and we see his relationship with his father and his mother. And the main kind of question I want to see here, because it informs the whole thematic arc of the movie, the whole point of the film, which is that we see that Victor's father, played by Charles Dance, what's his
Lannister.
Tywin
Lannister man.
Yeah, Tywin Lannister himself, among many other roles, obviously. But great cruel father. If you need a cruel father, hard to beat Charles Dance. But so we see that his father was very cruel to him, a very like demanding, cold father. One particular scene we see is that he's studying biology to become a doctor, it seems like, and he's quizzing him on biology, and Victor gets a question wrong, and his father punishes him by whipping him with like a cane or whatever. But Victor holds out his hand to be hit by the cane as his punishment, and his father says, "No, not your hands anymore. Those are the tools of your trade." And he's like, instead, he hits him in the face because his face is just there for vanity. And I wanted to know if any of this, but that's exchange, but just broadly the idea of Victor's father and his cruelty. Oh, and I guess beyond that, do we even see Victor's childhood in the book would be another question.
So this is 100% a movie invention.
Okay.
In the book, Victor and his father have like a very good, loving relationship.
So we do see
him interact with his family. Yeah, we get like a little bit of information about his childhood, not a lot of like extended scenes like this.
Okay. Well, it brings me to the next question then, because you said we see him interact with his family. In the movie, both his mother and father die at a relatively young age. His mother, as I said, dies in childbirth with his younger brother, William. And I wanted to know if that came from the movie, because there's then this kind of sub-element to it that Victor suspects that his father let his mother die, or at the very least chose to save the baby over her, basically.
Yeah.
And this kind of spurs his desire, his yearning to conquer death. He had a very close relationship with his mother because she was the only one who showed him any sort of compassion or kindness or anything like that. And so he has this very close relationship with his mother. So losing her kind of spurns this whole thing, and again is the impetus for his desire to conquer death in the film. And I wanted to know if that was pulled from the book.
No, none of this is from the book.
Okay.
His parents have a loving relationship. His mother does die in the book, but it's from scarlet fever, and it's right before Victor leaves to go to school. So it's not like when he's a little kid.
Oh, okay.
And I think I'll just go ahead and say this right now because it's a sentiment that is going to inform the entirety of my remaining opinions and answers to your questions. The book and the movie are incredibly different. And for about 75% of the movie, I was really enjoying its take on the story. I was like, okay, it's nothing like the book, but I like it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That feeling did not necessarily stay with me for the last 25% of the film, but we will get to that.
Yeah.
Overall, I think the changes that the movie makes to Victor's backstory and family are interesting. I think it's a good explanation for why his character ends up being who he is in the film and why he ends up with the goals and desires that he has, as well as the shortcomings that become very evident. I don't know that I would put this as better in the book or better in the movie necessarily, because
telling a different story.
Yeah, it's telling a different story.
Yeah, I will say I liked this part. I had no issue with this, and I actually thought this was all handled well. I think it's evident now that from the way I've been talking about it that I did not love this movie as much as I wanted to. I desperately desired to.
Yeah.
And I went in thinking I would at least like it, and I don't even know if I like it necessarily. I don't want to say I dislike it, but I don't know if I would say that I really like it that much.
I like things about it.
That is and we'll talk about this more as we go, but that is where I land, is that I like a lot of things about the movie, but I don't actually like the movie as a whole all that much. And
not nearly as much as I wanted to.
Not nearly as much as I wanted to, and definitely compared to other Del Toro films, it's pretty low on my list of Del Toro films that I've seen. Like if I were ranking it among, like, with my favorite Del Toros, it might be at the bottom of the list of films of his that I've seen. Maybe. I would have to go back and think about it, but it would be close, if not at the bottom. And we can maybe do that later, or maybe in the prequel. That would be it. We could like rank his movies in the next prequel episode of like what our favorites are. That actually might be a fun little exercise.
Let us know if you want to. If you want
us to do that, we could of the ones we've seen, we can each make our own little list and like rank them where we would put them. But yeah, this one was disappointing, and we'll get into why. But so far up to this point in the film, I had no issues.
Yeah. At this point in the film, I was seated. I was into it.
Yeah, I found it a little boring. I didn't think the performances were a little dry at times, and I thought like this whole part at the beginning wasn't gripping me as much as I hoped, but I was still on board with it. And this specific element of his backstory, I thought was I have not read Frankenstein, so I was not comparing it to the book, but knowing kind of what the story was roughly, like a little bit of like, with what the story was just culturally, which to be fair, I don't think I've ever watched a full Frankenstein movie
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I really did not know the beats of the story or anything like that, other than very, very broadly, like cultural osmosis wise, of like guy creates creature from dead people and then comes to regret creating,
Right.
like that very, very
Havoc
broad.
ensues.
Yeah, and then stuff happens, but they don't even know what happened or like what the point was or anything like that. And so up until this point, like just knowing like, okay, we're going to go through a thing where he's going to have this creation, and we're setting up like his childhood dynamics and his relationship with his father. And that's going to inform his relationship with the creature and all that. I was like, okay, I can see where this is going, and I'm liking all of this so far, even if I didn't think it was like particularly gripping to watch. I at least was like into it enough to be enjoying it. And I would never, well, we'll get to it. So moving forward a little bit, I think we jump ahead to, oh no, this might be a thing in his childhood. Yeah, this is a thing in his childhood, right? He sees this first as a child.
Yeah, I think so.
He goes to bed one night and he has a dream. And I think this might be right after his mother dies, potentially. I can't remember. But he has this dream where he sees this dark angel, and he calls it a dark angel. And it comes back again several times later, and I don't know if we ever really wrap that thread up. I'm trying to remember, like,
Not really.
if
I
that
don't
goes
think.
anywhere,
Yeah.
what that is necessarily. I don't remember entirely, but he has this visions of this dark angel, which is this giant red angel thing that he also has a statue in his bedroom that is kind of a similar thing. And I wanted to know if any of that and his vision of that came from the book.
There's nothing like this in the book. It's very Catholic imagery, unsurprisingly, considering that Del Toro was raised Catholic.
Yes. Yeah.
Mary Shelley, not so much.
Yeah.
It is a fun visual. I was not like overly enamored with that specific visual like I was with some of the film's other visual elements, but I think it works.
I would have to revisit the film, and I'm sure I will one day. This is a movie that I very much want to watch again in like 5 years or 10 years and see how, I don't know, just a second time, like how it goes down. To see if my opinion has changed at all. But this is an element where on a first viewing, especially taking notes, I did not grasp what this represented or meant or where it was supposed to go and inform the rest of the story. You know what I mean? So I'm a little, if you do know, I would love to get some feedback on that. Because again, I just, after one viewing, wasn't entirely sure what we were supposed to be getting from that. Another issue that I had, which we should have just watched the whole movie with subtitles, there was parts that even, we got a brand new sound system, but even with our new sound system, some of the dialogue was a little tough to understand. I think mainly because of accents more so than anything, because they have pretty thick, like, British accents that are, at times, I was having trouble parsing what was being said. Not too much, but occasionally. Also, they speak in a very, I don't even know the word for it. The kind of stilted, poetic way from this time period, and of the, I assume, dialogue pulled from the novel that you really have to like lock in and parse. You can't just like passively. Not that I was passively listening to it, but like while I'm taking notes, if other things are happening, it's hard for your brain to like exactly register everything that's or being said. Because I know like during that first vision he has, there's a lot of dialogue during that, or a fair amount of dialogue, I'm pretty sure, and I think I probably missed what that was supposed to be getting at there. Anyways, moving forward, he grows up now. He is now a member of the, whatever it said in the summary, the Guild of Surgeons at the Edinburgh or whatever.
Yeah.
And he is presenting on his new project where he can reanimate dead tissue, dead corpses. And he gives a demonstration that he is at not trial, but he is at a hearing, basically to see if he's allowed to stay a member of this group because they don't love what he's been doing. And so he shows them, he reanimates part of a corpse and is like playing catch with it and stuff. And I wanted to know if that came from the book because I thought that was interesting. And it surprised me that he was that far along. Like the story shows him being that far along, or able to literally bring a corpse back to life and like play catch with it prior to like the moment he actually brings a corpse back to life. I'm like, oh, he seems to be able to do this already. And so I wanted to know if that came from the book.
No, it does not.
Okay.
He conducts his experiments in secret and never tells anyone else what he's working on or what he's done, which obviously then becomes an even bigger secret when the creature is running around doing things.
Yeah, obviously.
The book does say like shortly before we get the actual reanimation of the creature, it says that like there's a vague line about like I had learned how to instill life into tissue, but
Mhm.
there's no detail about like what
What he means
exactly
by
that
that, yeah,
means.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the scene is fun, and I think that's mainly why it's there, is to kind of, like, I say fun, it's also deeply, like, horrifying in a way that
Yeah.
is intentionally supposed to be. You're supposed to be like, "Jesus Christ," 'cause he at the end of this experiment, he pulls the plugs out of it, and it, like, dies hideously
Yeah.
again, and you're like, "Oh god." And so it also sets up an interesting dynamic that I don't know if the movie ever really, like, hashes out, which is that all of these other scientists are like, this is sacrilege, this is, what are you doing? And there's this kind of interesting dynamic to the film of like, I tend to agree with them in that moment of like, what the fuck this is
Mhm.
insane. Like, why are we bringing corpses back to life? And like, and they're like, why are you doing? And obviously I don't think it's sacrilege, but I do think my brain is going like, there's something, this is fucked up. And the story, like, Frankenstein is squarely a villain in this story. Like, he
Yes.
is absolutely a
Absolutely.
villain in this story, in the movie. And a sympathetic villain who has moments of, yeah, and you understand like why
Why he
broadly
is the
he
way
is the
he
way he
is.
is, but
Yeah.
he is the villain. And so I thought there was this interesting dynamic of like, you disagree with the idea of him doing this, and I think the movie even kind of wants you to disagree with the idea of him doing this, but also be incredibly sympathetic to the result of this thing that he does,
Mhm.
which is an interesting, and there's an interesting tension there. And I just probably would have to watch the movie again to see if it actually, I just don't felt like the movie explored that tension as thoroughly as it could have. It just kind of like, once the creature is created, we just kind of ignore how it happened or why or anything like that, and don't even kind of really grapple with that element of the moral of it, and more so just about, okay, now that the creature exists, what do we, which I think is probably the right way to go. But I don't know, talking myself in circles here. Another thing that I thought was interesting, a character quirk in the film, is that we see in his childhood, Victor drinks milk all the time, but then as he gets older, he also continues to pretty much exclusively drink milk. And I imagine this is supposed to be a kind of a sign of his childhood trauma, of like a
Mm.
stunted, of something where he is, he has this trauma from his childhood, and he has kind of connected this, almost like an Arrested Development thing in some way, in that regard, that he still continues to like only drink milk even as a like 35-year-old man, or however old he's supposed to be in this. I actually don't know, but I wanted to know if that came from the book, because I thought it was kind of interesting.
No, that doesn't come from the book, or at least it's never mentioned that he's like chugging milk all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I assume this is meant to symbolize, like for the most part, like you said, Arrested Development, mommy issues.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's even a more specific element of it, is, yeah, his issues with his mom, because
yeah,
that's a big element in the movie.
and also pretty common filmic language for villains to drink milk.
That is true. That is not uncommon for villains to drink milk, which is interesting. I don't know why that is necessarily, but yeah, they're the famous, with an actor from this movie, Christoph Waltz, drinking milk in several different scenes in
Mm.
Inglorious Bastards as the evil Nazis. There's several scenes where he's drinking milk villainously. We are then introduced to Elizabeth, who is the niece of Harlander, who is the arms dealer who is going to back this whole um, endeavor
Hmm.
financially. And then his niece Elizabeth is engaged to Victor's brother William. So
Yeah.
that's the whole dynamic. So we meet Elizabeth at this dinner that they're having, and I thought this was one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Probably was her introduction,
Hmm.
because I was like, ooh, I like this dynamic between them. I don't think it carries as much through the movie. It's still there a little bit, but this first opening dynamic between them I thought was really compelling, where Victor is like talking about his ideas and like what he wants to do, and Elizabeth kind of calls him out, and specifically calls out his reverence for kind of just the broad concept of like ideas. Because he's like, oh, and I don't remember the exact exchange that they have, but he's like, what, like she kind of like scoffs at something he says, and he goes, "Well, don't you you have an issue with big ideas or something like that?" And she goes, "Well, I don't have reverence for ideas themselves. I have reverence for good ideas, or essentially." And she goes on to kind of cite like the current war, the Crimean War, that men are being sent to die for. Like, is that, those are big ideas. The ideas behind the war are big ideas, but I have no reverence for them. That kind of thing. Basically, kind of immediately proving herself to be somewhat of an intellectual rival to Frankenstein in a way that he was not expecting, especially
Yeah.
during this time period, which I thought was compelling. And I wanted to know if that came from the book.
It does not.
Okay.
Book Elizabeth is a pretty nothing character, if I'm being honest. She's Victor's adopted sister, like from childhood.
Yeah.
They grew up together, and they later get married, which was their mother's dying wish for them to get married. So the movie did not pull the incest vibes out of nowhere.
Oh, you mean the mother-son incest? Is that what you're...
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like general overtones of things.
Right. Because in the movie, she's not related to him at all.
No.
But
he does refer to her as sister once or twice.
He does.
She's marrying his brother.
Yes. And the movie very intentionally... you may not have noticed this, because I even knew this going in, and I almost still couldn't tell that this was the case. Mia Goth plays both his mother and Elizabeth. They do some fair amount of prosthetics on her when she's playing the mother, but it is still the same actress, which is, again, an intentional playing on that the kind of Oedipal stuff that's going on.
Yeah. Anyway, like I said, in the book, Elizabeth is pretty boring. She's not even in most of it.
Okay.
The most interesting thing she does is speak on behalf of a servant girl who's falsely accused of murder, but she does not succeed in saving her. Otherwise, she's just kind of occasionally in the background until it's time for her to die.
Yeah.
So I liked the changes that the movie made to Elizabeth. I thought she was smart. She had her own point of view.
Yeah.
I felt like she was definitely attracted to Victor, but she was like smart enough to see that red flag for what it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of the movie's marketing, I felt like made it seem like she was going to be the creature's love interest, but I honestly wouldn't even say that that's really the case.
No, I would say the creature does love her, obviously, at the end, but she is not in love with the creature. She likes the creature,
him. She has empathy for him.
She sees his humanity and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's like wants to be in a relationship with him.
No, I don't think there's anything more than like the vague suggestion overtone of romance, and honestly more like romance with a capital R.
Yes. Yeah. It's romance in the sense that she sees his humanity, and so he falls in love with her.
Yeah.
But yes, I do not think, it seems in the movie that she is very perfectly happy to be marrying William.
Yeah.
And has no desire, even when the monster creature shows up, she's not like, oh, now I must run away with you, to be like, that's not the dynamic the movie is going for. Again, this might be my favorite scene in the movie, because this hits on one of my favorite themes that I think the movie is touching on a little bit, which is kind of calling out modern kind of like tech bro culture, the like move fast, break things. All ideas are good ideas. Let's just do the things that are the most interesting and cool without caring about the consequence. It's that like very much a critique of kind of like Silicon Valley style tech bro, super entrepreneurial, like startup culture stuff. Like, I think Victor Frankenstein in this is kind of meant to represent that type of genius who is uncaring about the consequences of what he does. I just think the movie fails to continue like that critique as well as it does in this scene. I think it kind of falls away as the movie moves on. But we'll talk more about that, especially later. But it just, I did really like this part where I was like, oh, I can see what we're doing here. I think this is kind of compelling and interesting. I might talk myself into liking this movie by the end. We'll see. Because it is one of those things. This is the thing. Like you said earlier, I like all the parts. So when I'm talking about it, like in retrospect, I'm like, well, I like what it's doing here, but it just, and we'll get to it. But yeah. I wanted to know if Harlander came from the book, and specifically if he is the one funding this whole endeavor, and if there is this thing that he, like, unspecified thing that he wants Victor to agree to in order for him to fund all of this. I wanted to know if that little subplot came from the book.
No, Harlander is entirely a movie invention. He's not from the book at all.
I thought I read there was a similar character though that was like
No.
played a similar role. No,
I
okay.
cannot think of a single character that I would.
Is there not somebody that is killed by the creature who is like Elizabeth's like uncle or something? Or I thought I read somebody say that there was some. Okay, I could be wrong.
I don't know that this part of the movie worked all that well for me. I didn't mind his character per se, but the like secret motivation thing annoyed me a little because
it doesn't really
I thought the
anywhere
reveal
either.
of it was not interesting.
Yeah, so the reveal is, and I think I have it. We'll get to it here in just a second.
But like when he started, there was one point where he was talking about how like, oh, we only have a week left for this because the war is ending. And I was like, okay, does he want a super soldier?
I think that was in reference specifically to, and I would have to because I remember that part, and I think that because I had a similar confusion. I think that may have been in reference to the supply of bodies.
Okay.
Not that they, because I also was wondering, like, does he want a super, like, is the point that he wants to create this thing in order to like use it as a super soldier and like deploy it in war or whatever, which you would assume would be the case,
right? Because he's like an arms dealer,
and so he wants to create this super soldier to like be a soldier or whatever. But that's not the thing.
No.
And then on top of that, it wouldn't make sense. Even if that was the case, it wouldn't make sense, I don't think, in my opinion, to be like, well, this war's about to end, so we don't need a super, like, of course they would still want a super, you know what I mean? Like the war ending, they would be like, well, there's going to be another, it's the 1800s. There's a war every other week, like that's starting here. And even if there isn't a war, you would still want a super soldier to be like, hey, we're a superpower that has a super weapon or whatever.
Well, and he's an arms dealer. So if there's not a war, he'll just start one. No problem.
Again, I think what he's referencing there is specifically the supply of bodies that they need. I think is that the war will supply that, but when the war ends, they won't have which they also take them from people being, I don't know. I think that's the idea though. Speaking of where he gets the bodies from, another thing they do is that they go to hangings, and he collects the bodies of dead prisoners who are being executed. And we get this scene where he is like inspecting the prisoners before they are being hung to see who he wants. And I wanted to know if that scene came from the book.
It doesn't, but I liked it within the context of what the film was doing.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought it was a really good way to show how removed from his humanity Victor was.
Yes, he's completely like just does not register these people as people at all. He just doesn't give it. He's just they're meat to him. And he just kind of inspects them and then just moves on as they're hanging people in the background. He just does not care. Another scene that I liked in the movie that I thought was a lot of fun was that Victor has fallen for Elizabeth. He has been smitten by her wit and beauty.
The fact that she looks like his mother.
And the fact that she looks exactly like his mother. And he follows her one day and she goes to a Catholic church to go into confessional. And he sneaks into the confessional. The confessional. It doesn't, I said booth, I guess. Whatever. I don't know what the term is. It's just a confessional, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He sneaks in and pretends to be the priest so that he can find out what her confession is. But she realizes this, and they have a fun, coy little back and forth where she confesses to hating Victor Frankenstein and that he's obnoxious. And then he realizes that she's leading him on and blah, blah, blah. And I thought this exchange was very fun. And again, created some fun character tension between them. And again, showed her, the fact that she is not outwitted by Victor. And I wanted to know if that scene came from the book.
It doesn't, but I also really liked this scene. I thought it was a lot of fun and good character moments.
Yeah. Speaking of, does Victor fall for Elizabeth in the book?
In the book, they are lovers and they get married.
Oh, so is there anything? Is she engaged to his brother, or is his brother in the book? Or I haven't asked that. I guess.
I said she. So they
did you say
I talked about her background. She is his adopted sister.
Yeah, I saw that, but adopted. Okay, my brain didn't register what that meant. Yeah.
So they then grew up together, like,
Gotcha.
always, like, with like, as brother and sister, but, like, always with the expectation
Yes.
that they were going to be wed.
Weird.
Pretty weird,
Cool.
yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Pretty weird stuff.
Awesome. So then we get to the point where it is revealed, and actually we are right to the point where the creature creation is happening. As you said, Harlander is like, hey, we're running out of time. We got to do this. The war is ending. So they go and they get a bunch of body parts, and we get this fun montage of a very gruesome montage of Victor sewing together body parts. Lots of cool practical effects, but very, they're not shying away from showing all the guts and gruesomeness. But it is then revealed as he has the body ready to go, and he goes to talk to Harlander to be like, hey, we're ready to go. And it is revealed that Harlander is dying of syphilis. And that his secret condition, is that he wants to put his brain inside the body of the creature.
Yeah.
And that's kind of his motivation behind doing all of this, is he wants his brain in the body so that he can continue living, basically. And I wanted to know if that element came from the book.
It doesn't, but I have a couple thoughts.
Okay.
First of all, being that I feel like he waited way too long to reveal that condition.
I think the idea that he was thinking was, if I wait till the last minute, it will give Victor less of an opportunity to refuse me.
Right.
Because, like, we'll have a ticking clock, like, we got to do it, or something.
But they're literally, like, they have minutes.
Yes, I would agree with that. And
how are we getting his brain out?
Also, clearly, he already has a brain in there.
Yeah.
Because
we're gonna have to open up the corpse too and take that brain out. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
I will say, to be fair too, I also don't know if they didn't know exactly when they were gonna do it. The storm happened to roll in, and Victor was like, holy shit, it's time to go.
Right.
And so
I
don't think that Harlander knew, like, we're going to do it at this time on this day, and then waited until 5 minutes before. I think he was waiting till close to tell him, and then it so happened that the storm rolled in just at the right time, and he was like, well, shit, we got to do it now. Yeah.
And my other thing is that, and this is kind of my beef with Harlander's character overall, is that I'm not sure I entirely understand the addition of his character, other than to explain how Victor funded his experiment, which is a thing that the book does not feel is necessary to explain.
Yeah.
And I also kind of don't think it's necessary to explain.
My issue with Harlander's plotline, and this is where I'm hoping somebody can explain this to me, because I was very confused about this. This actually did not really affect my enjoyment of the movie at all. I will say that this is a thing I was slightly confused about, but it did not bother me really in the slightest, and I stopped thinking about it immediately. I have other issues with the movie that are all like script, like character based. One of the things that I was confused about is he's like, hey, I want you to put my brain in the body. And he's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, we got to go now. So they have all these contraptions that they have to put together in order that they have to add to the machine in order for the lightning strike thing to happen.
Yes.
And for all of the electricity to be conducted the way it needs to and whatever. And there seems to be like these 3 different pieces that they have. The first one, Victor climbs up to the tower to put the like lightning rod basically on the tower roof. Then he comes down into the tower, and he's putting a second piece against another lightning rod connector that's going to conduct the electricity from after it hits the tower, and then direct it down to like towards the where the actual table is and where the creature is. And then he has a third one that Harlander grabs.
Yeah.
As he's attaching the second one, Harlander grabs the third one, and Victor freaks out and he threatens to destroy it. He's like, put my brain in the body or I will destroy this and we won't be able to do, it'll ruin the whole thing. And Victor's like, holy shit, no, don't do that. And is able to grab him. Harlander falls and the thing falls, catches on his foot, and then they both fall. Harlander's shirt rips and he falls to his death and crushes his head on the pavement. And even if he wanted to, Victor couldn't use his brain at that point because it is no longer. Yes. But the object fell and was destroyed. So I did some quick Googling on this, and it looks like what happened actually is that the device that fell was not destroyed, but just damaged a little bit. And when I went back and rewatched this scene, I did notice that, and that he does actually install it on the machine. And people on the internet are speculating that what actually happened there is that the machine still worked properly, but that was the damaged part is what caused the machine to like destroy itself because it didn't conduct the electricity properly or whatever, and so it destroyed the whole machine. And that the idea is that so nobody else could do this again. He couldn't recreate this or do it again or try again when this first one messed up, which I think makes sense. But I did not gather that that was what was happening when we watched the movie. So we're gonna keep talking about this for the next couple of minutes, but that's the explanation that makes the most sense to me. But the experiment still works. And I don't understand what that device was or what it, again, doesn't really matter because it all works out. But the movie never, right? Am I crazy that the movie never goes like what that was and why it was important?
Yeah, I
and
don't think
how it
so.
affected.
I feel like there's got to be a missing scene there or something.
I felt that way about a lot of this movie.
Yeah.
My biggest critique of this movie is that it should have been 30 or 40 minutes longer, which is crazy for a movie that is already 2.5 hours. But if there's a 3 hour and 5 minute cut of this movie.
I did see, and I have not verified this, but I did see a thing on Instagram today that apparently there is going to be a director's cut.
I will absolutely watch. It's insane to me that this isn't the director's cut because Del Toro seemed to have, his say over what he wanted. But I guess they said you got to get it down to 2:30 maybe. Maybe that was like their main directive is like you got to get it to 2:30 or people won't watch it. I will absolutely watch a director's cut of this because my biggest complaint was that I felt, especially in the middle of this movie, way too much was missing.
Mm-hmm.
From right here, from the moment the creature is created until basically the end when we get to the boat again, and wrap everything up, there could have been an extra 40 minutes in there of additional character interactions and scenes and character work that I think could have made this movie go from like a 5 for me to like an 8 or 9. The movie is so close to has all of the elements to be great, but the middle is lacking so much character work and development and like stuff going on. So much of that is missing in the middle act for me that it makes everything else just not work about the whole end of the story. And so 100% I would absolutely watch a director's cut of this that's like 3 hours long or something like that. I don't even think it would take that much, just like 20 to 30 minutes or whatever of additional scenes. And this is one where I would love to know, again, this doesn't really matter. This is one of those things that 15 years ago I'd be like, well, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
But I don't really care about that because in this story I care more about like the characters and like what the story is saying and the technicality of how the fucking bullshit science works. I don't really care, but it does make me go like, well, what was that thing? You were so worried that it was so
seemed
important,
very important, and then it wasn't
breaks,
important.
and then it just didn't matter at all. So you're left going like, unless that's intentional, and the idea is like he didn't really understand, like proving that he doesn't really know what he's doing. I don't know, but it just felt really weird. Anyways, if you understand what that thing was, why it mattered, and then why it didn't matter at all, please let me know. Or if it did, and somehow that has something to do with, but the creature seems to be fine, and I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So that was an issue I had with the Harlander thing, was that all just felt like, and then he just dies, and it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, he dies, and it doesn't matter.
And he kind of just becomes and then he kind of is the impetus, like when William finds his body for them like leaving and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it does feel, it was a little bit of especially finding out that none of it comes from the book. And it feels like maybe there must have been more going on there or something that was either cut or something like that. So it happens, the lightning strikes, and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
The body lays there, doesn't come to life. And he's like, it failed. And so he crawls into bed and falls asleep and then wakes up the next morning and the creature is standing at the edge of his bed alive. And I wanted to know if that's how it played out in the book, because I thought that was very fun. And it's not ever how I've thought, or I'm interested if it comes from the book, because I don't know if I've ever imagined that was how Frankenstein being created, or the creature being created, happened.
So this is definitely a direct nod to something that happens in the book, although it's a little different.
Okay.
In the book, Victor sees the creature start to open his eyes. Like he does whatever the reanimation thing is, which is vague in the book. I'll get to it. And he sees the creature, like his like eyes flutter, and he promptly gets so freaked out that he runs out of the room into his bedroom and hides under the blankets. Whereupon he goes to sleep and has nightmares about Elizabeth turning into his mother's corpse.
Okay.
Nothing going on there. I'm
surprised
sure.
the movie didn't use that.
Yeah,
that feels
right.
Like a
that feels good.
Yeah.
Then he awakens to the creature standing over him as he's in bed.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, clearly the very similar idea there. Yeah, for sure. This is another line. So this is what I was talking about. All of my issues with the movie aside, I'm so interested to see how much of these lines come from the book versus the movie, because it has just some incredible prose in it, dialogue, some that is spoken by characters that is just beautifully crafted and hits really hard. And one of them was this, is that Victor says, and I don't know who he's saying this to, I just have the line written down. I never considered what would come after creation, and having reached the edge of the earth, there was no horizon left. And I wanted to know if that line came from the book.
I don't think this exact line is from the book. I searched some keywords, didn't find anything. There is kind of a similar line from around the same time in the story. But now that I had finished, the beauty of the dream vanished, and breathless horror and disgust filled my heart. In the book, Victor is immediately disgusted by what he's done as soon as he does it. So, like, in the movie, we have this depiction of Victor as, like, an abusive father.
Yes.
In the book, he's more like an absentee father.
Okay.
He brings the creature to life and then immediately abandons it.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Speaking of, there's another line in exchange in the book, and this kind of goes to what you were just talking about, but as he's trying to teach the creature, he has the creature chained in like the basement of this tower that his lab that he's working in. And as he's trying to teach it how to talk, at one point, the creature is like flinching around him when he grabs something or whatever. And he says, "Are you afraid of me? I'm not going to hurt you. I made you. I'm your maker." And I wanted to know if that line came from the book, but specifically, I want to know, and based on what you said, it's a different thing, but his relationship in the movie with the creature goes south so quickly, and he kind of just turns into his father, like, immediately. It's interesting hearing you say that it's a similar thing in the book, because that was one of my issues with the movie, is that this is one of the parts where I felt like, man, this feels like stuff is cut here, because his relationship with the creature sours so quickly in the film in a way. It's not that it felt unrealistic, it just felt truncated in a way that I was like, I was imagining it going that direction.
Yeah.
It's just, it seemed like the movie was missing scenes of like how it got there in a way that it just didn't, it felt underdeveloped to me. And I wanted to know though, if it was at all similar in the book.
So none of this stuff is from the book, because Victor literally does not spend any time with the creature.
Oh, really?
Like after creating. Yeah, I was not kidding when I
when you
said
say
immediately abandons him.
What is, like, in what way? How does it?
Like runs out of the room and does not return.
Right, but then you said it shows up and it's standing over his bed.
And
like,
he
then,
runs out of the room again and does not return.
Oh, and he like goes to London or
he leaves.
I'm just confused. Yeah.
He leaves his rooms. He hangs out for a bit. His friend shows up. They do some stuff. And then when he goes back to his rooms, the creature's gone.
And he's just
and
like,
he's like,
God.
yes, basically, essentially,
Okay.
yeah. He's like,
right.
Thank God that's over. It's not over.
Yeah.
It's going to haunt you for the rest of your short life.
Yeah. All right.
But I like the idea
Yes.
of doing more direct commentary on Victor being like a terrible father, because that commentary is also present in the book.
Yeah,
it's
he
just,
abandons.
it's just not quite as direct as
Yeah.
it is here in the film. But I don't think the movie quite nails the landing with this.
No, I agree completely. It's one of those things where it's like, I see what you're going for.
Yeah.
I agree.
I see what you're going for, and I'm into it.
Yes, I just don't
But
think
the
it's executed.
the execution is leaving me a little wanting.
Yes, exactly. Specifically, then we move on, and Elizabeth and William show up. They come to visit. Well, in the movie, it's because they get a note they get some mail for Victor.
Yeah.
I think that they're bringing to him from. I think it's from the surgeon people. Maybe?
Yeah, some surgeon thing.
Yeah. And so they're bringing him this note, and then when they get there, Elizabeth, they run off to do something. Victor and William run off to do something, and Elizabeth wanders down in the basement and immediately just finds the creature chained up in the basement, and immediately forms a connection with it. And I wanted to know if that came from the book, but also specifically, Victor has been trying to teach the creature to speak, to talk, and has been failing, and the creature only says Victor over and over again. And Elizabeth introduces herself to the creature, and as she's leaving, it says Elizabeth. And so they kind of immediately have this connection, and I wanted to know if that came from the book, if Elizabeth kind of forms this connection with the creature.
No.
Okay.
Elizabeth never really interacts with the creature until she dies.
Yeah.
But I did like this element given the direction that the movie was taking, and also changes to Elizabeth's character.
Yeah, she's more of a scientist in the film. Like she has these interests. She seems to be really into like etymology. Is that the right?
She's interested in science, but she's kind of a foil to Victor in the sense that she is able to retain her empathy and humanity and like combine that with her other interests.
And she seems more interested in like observing and admiring nature and God's creation or whatever, whereas Victor obviously wants to conquer it, wants to bend it to his will. And that is we're playing kind of two sides of the same coin. I didn't mind this first scene between them, and I think it was another thing where there was an interesting direction to go there. I just don't think that it quite got as much work as it needed. Again, this is the whole part of the movie here in the middle where I just felt like it was missing huge chunks of what I was expecting to be there to really build toward where the movie goes at the end. But yeah, I liked the idea here for sure. As I mentioned earlier, Victor has been constantly trying to get the creature to talk, and it won't. And at this point, he is so fed up and thinks that he has failed and that this creature will not be intelligent. And he has fallen so fully into being his own father, who is disappointed in his son for not living up to his high standards, essentially, that he decides he needs to destroy the creature because it is this abomination and a failure. And again, this is a little bit of where I buy everything about the journey Victor goes on. I just think it happens a little quickly and truncated and just isn't fully explored in a way that felt compelling and correct to me. It just felt a little like not performative, but it just felt like this is what the script needs to happen here, as opposed to like this is what makes the most sense for these characters in this moment. It is kind of how this middle section felt to me, and the end a little bit. Although I think the end, we'll get to it, I think the end could have worked had this middle section been done better, but that's my contingent with this whole film, or that's my whole issue with the whole film. He decides he needs to destroy it, and he goes down to the basement. He has all these gas cans everywhere, and he's dumping gasoline everywhere, and he's going to burn the building down. And he says to the creature as he's standing there, say one word, say any word other than Victor, and I'll save you, basically, and I won't do this. And as the creature doesn't say anything, but then as he's leaving, the creature quietly says Elizabeth, and Victor hears him. He turns around and looks at him, and then leaves anyways, and lights the tower on fire. And I wanted to know if that scene came from the book.
No, none of this comes from the book. I liked the idea of this scene also. The massive amount of gas cans did take me out of it a little bit. It was like a comical amount of gas cans.
It is, but I was like, whatever. It is silly, but it's that's one of those details where I'm like, whatever. Were I 20 years ago, I would be like, that's so dumb. Why are there so many gas cans? But does he destroy his lab or anything like that in the book? Does any of this element come from the book of like trying to the creature just disappears, he said. So there's nothing where he like burns his lab down or destroys any of his stuff or anything like that.
Trying to think. Scanning. Don't think so.
I thought I read there was. Maybe okay.
There's a point where Victor is trying to create. So at the end of the movie, close to the end of the movie when the creature tells Victor that he wants Victor to make him a companion.
Yes, yeah.
That is from the book. And
Okay.
in the book, Victor does start to do that. And then he changes his mind and destroys what he's been building.
Oh, okay.
So that could be
similar idea there.
similar, but he doesn't like burn it all down or anything.
Okay. So then that all blows up. He blows everything up. His leg gets ripped off. And then we cut back to, and he gets found by his brother and Elizabeth. And then we cut back to the North Pole on the boat. And we're back. And he is still recounting this story because he's been telling this whole story to the ship's captain. Played by that one wizard guy from The Witcher. I don't know if you recognize it, but that's that guy. Yeah. Anyway, so he gets back there, and we got back there, and he's telling him, and he has this line that he says to the captain that I wanted to know if it came from the book, where he says, "In seeking life, I created death." Again, just lots of metal, gothic, cool lines in this, and I wanted to know if that came from the book.
I also did not find this line in the book.
Okay.
It's possible there's something very similar that I was not able to find.
Yeah.
So if you recognize that one, let us know.
All right. So then, as he's finished telling this part of the tale, there's a commotion outside the ship's, the captain's quarters, and the door bursts open, and the creature is standing there. And he walks in, and he goes, "Ha! My turn to tell my half of the tale." And we get a perspective switch to, because Victor has been narrating the whole thing until this point. And then we get a perspective switch, and the creature gets to tell his tale from the explosion to where we are now. And I wanted to know if that came from the book, because that was cool.
In a manner of speaking, yes. In the book, while Victor is telling his story to the captain, partway through, he says that a year or two after creating the creature, he was accosted by the creature while he was hiking in the Alps, at which point the creature tells Victor all about what he has been doing for that length of time. And Victor then relays the creature's story to the captain. The book is kind of structured like a Matryoshka doll. I think I said that right. It starts with the captain's letters, which contain Victor's story. When then inside of Victor's story is the creature's story.
This is Cloud Atlas.
Yeah.
There's an example of it, maybe. I would have to see exactly how it plays out. But
it doesn't sound quite as meta as that is, yeah. But yeah,
it's a similar idea. That
so it starts with the letters, and then in the letters, the captain's like, "You're never going to believe what this guy told me. Let me write down his whole story for you."
That's actually, no, that's pretty similar to the idea of what's going on
halfway
in Cloud
through
Atlas.
Victor's story, he's like, "Okay, now I'm going to pause and tell you what the creature told me," and we shift like into the creature's point of view.
I do wonder. I would be interested. I think there are other stories that are more direct inspirations for Cloud Atlas, but I would be interested to know, because that is very similar to what Cloud Atlas does, except Cloud Atlas, and it sounds like, takes it a little bit further, but yeah.
So there are like narrative shifts and perspective shifts, and the audiobook that I listened to was narrated by 3 different people, which I presume is commonplace.
Yeah.
I don't know. So we do get that perspective change, but then you kind of have to decide how much you trust any of it, because the creature's story is being filtered through Victor, and all of it is being filtered through Captain Walton. And like, to be honest, I don't know that it was Mary Shelley's intention to imply any kind of unreliable narration necessarily, but I do think it's an interesting wrinkle.
It is, for sure. And I think there's potentially a compelling choice by the movie to give the creature his story and allow him to tell it, and actually, which would make sense, because the story we see, Victor would have no idea what any of this happened, because it's all stuff where he was not involved for the most part until obviously the end, where they're encountering each other again. But most of this part here coming up, which brings us to my next question is after he escapes, and as we talked about earlier, Victor doesn't try to destroy him, and he like escapes out of down a water slide in the bottom of the thing, as he does in the movie. He just, I assume, just leaves the house.
He leaves and like wanders in the woods for a while.
But specifically in the movie, what we see is that he wanders around and then he finds this family's house out in the middle of the countryside, and is able to hide in there. And I thought it was a barn, but there are a bunch of cogs in it, and they eventually will say it's like the mill cogs or whatever. Basically, there was an old mill building attached to this family's like longhouse that they don't use anymore, and he's able to hide and live in there while this family lives in the house next door. And he's also, while he's there, he's able to like look through the walls and watch them, like they're teaching this young girl how to read, and so he's able to learn from watching that. And I wanted to know if any of this came from the book, because then the rest of the family leaves, and there's this old man, played by the guy who plays Argus Filch, and the evil guy from Game of Thrones who does the Red Wedding. That I can't remember that actor's name, but he's there. He lives in this house as a blind old man. He wants to stay there for the winter, and then the creature comes in and introduces himself to him, and they spend the winter together. And I wanted to know if any of this came from the book.
So yes and no. The creature does hide in, he calls it a hovel.
Yeah.
In the book. I was picturing kind of like a lean-to based on what he was describing, because it like sits up against a cottage, and he hides in there, and he watches this family through a crack in the wall for like a year.
Oh, okay.
And it's a blind old man and his adult son and his adult daughter. And then eventually the son gets a lover. More on that in a minute.
Okay.
So he watches this family for like a year, and he also does things for them, like gathering the wood. And they refer to him as a good spirit who's doing things
in
for
the movie,
them.
they refer to him as the spirit of the woods.
Yeah. So he learns to speak and read by observing the family, because, as luck would have it, the son's Middle Eastern lover shows up and also needs to be taught to speak and read in their language. This part was pretty silly, honestly.
Yeah.
He does not spend winter hanging out with the old man. More on that in a minute after your next question.
Okay. Probably a good choice to switch it to them teaching a child. As opposed to like, I mean, not that it could work too, I guess, but yeah. Then, so we get to, he spends the winter with the old man, and then at one point he decides he needs to leave and go find his roots, and specifically he heads back to the lab that is now destroyed, and he searches through the wreckage, and he finds Victor's notes kind of explaining that he was created by Victor. And then also he finds a letter with Victor's address on it, so he knows where Victor lives now. And then he returns to go back to the house with the old man. And when he gets there, the door's open, and we've set up earlier that wolves will come ravaging through. And they are very cartoon movie wolves that are like these evil, vicious, which it's fine. It's a fairy tale. Like they're like these overly ridiculous evil wolves that like, there's literally like the whole ground shakes when they come running. Like, it's a little silly, but again, we're going for this archetypal, like these are fairy tale wolves that are like big, bad, scary monsters, basically. And they have gotten in the house, and they are eating and killing the old man. And Victor comes in and dispatches all the wolves in gruesome ways, or some of them, and then the rest of them run off. And he has a brief moment with the old man as he's dying. And then the old man's family returns at just the worst possible time, and they're like, hey, it's that, because earlier they saw this creature in the woods and shot at him because they thought he was like a yeti or something. I don't know. And they're like, hey, it's that thing again, and they think he has killed. Although I think they would fill it out pretty quick when they saw the dead wolves laying around.
Right. You would, I mean,
but who knows? Whatever.
It's shoot first, ask questions later with these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they show up and shoot him, and he dies out in the woods. And I wanted to know if, I actually didn't ask that, but if that also happens where we find out that he can't die because of this, that he gets shot by them and seems to die, and then he wakes back up and comes back to life.
Okay, so none of this is from the book.
Okay.
There is a similar moment in the book where he has been watching this family for like a year, and he decides to reveal himself to them. And he decides to do it while the old man is the only one home. because he's blind. And
Yeah.
the creature's like, okay, so I can get my foot in the door with someone who's not going to be immediately put off by my appearance, because he's already had multiple interactions with other people at this point who were just immediately like, what is that thing? Kill it.
Yeah.
So he's a little hesitant.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm going to get my foot in the door with this guy who can't see me, and he's the patriarch. It's going to be fine. But then right after he goes inside and is trying to convey his story to the blind old man, who is open to hearing it.
Okay.
He's trying to convey his story. Everybody else comes back home and they immediately freak out. So the creature manages to like slip away and hide. But then when he comes back out, the entire family has abandoned the cottage. They just all up and left. I preferred the movie's take on this part of the story. Like I said, I thought this part in the book, it was fine. Parts of it were a little silly. The idea that he was able to like learn to read just by like listening to them, I thought was a little silly. And the introduction of a Middle Eastern character was, as you can imagine, a little rough in some spots.
Yeah, some issues with.
Yeah. And I thought that the movie allowing the creature to actually bond with the old man before having everything ripped away from him was like infinitely more sad.
Yes, definitely.
One thing that I did find funny about the book is that the family actually did the thing that everyone says horror movie families should do. Like, they saw a monster in their house one time and immediately moved out.
That's true. They were like,
They
yeah,
were
I'm
like,
getting the fuck out of here.
"We're out."
Nope, not doing this. Yeah, it's just true. That's true.
It is not implied in the book that the creature is immortal.
Okay.
Hard to kill, maybe, because of, like, his size and general, I don't know, toughness.
Yeah.
But there's no implication
that if he were to be, like, got his head cut off, that he would, like, come back to life or something like that, Which I don't know in the movie, he might not either, but he gets shot, like, a lot in that one scene and, again, does die and then, like, comes back to life. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to know if it came from the book. Does Victor lose his leg when he blows up the lab? Now, obviously, he doesn't blow up the lab, but does he lose his leg at any point in the book?
There's no mention of any injuries this severe, no.
Okay. I mean, I clearly we're going for this idea that I assume in the movie here of giving him something similar to giving him a way to kind of commiserate with the body horror of the creature.
Right.
Like, I think the idea here is that we're giving him an in for him to develop some sympathy potentially for the creature by having this limb that is not his. He has this prosthetic leg, and I think that's what we're going for. It doesn't really go anywhere, and it doesn't feel like it motivates Victor's change at all. In fact, nothing really feels like it motivates Victor's change, which is kind of my biggest issue with the whole end of the movie. Is it just feels like he kind of just changes his mind out of nowhere, seemingly. But we'll get to that. But it doesn't lose his leg in the book.
No.
Then we get to the wedding. William is getting ready to get married to Elizabeth. The creature has come back to life and realized he needs to go find Victor so that he can have Victor create him a partner so that he can have somebody to be with, because he can't die and he doesn't want to be lonely. So he arrives back at Victor's estate or whatever, and when he gets there, Victor realizes, like, he comes inside and Victor realizes he's there, and they face off with each other, and Victor turns to him and says, and I wanted to know if this line came from the book, because I thought, again, there's a lot of good dialogue in this movie. It's just not enough of it, I guess. I don't know. Where he says, "Are you here to thank me?" As soon as the creature walks in, the first thing he says to him is, "Are you here to thank me?" And it's just, you're like, God, you fucking asshole. He says, "You survived and you were intelligent enough to find me. I made you well." And I wanted to know if any of that came from the book.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that dynamic. I thought, again, there's so many moments where it's like almost there. It just, so then does he ask Victor? Because then the next thing he's like, hey, like I said, he wants a companion. And I wanted to know if he asked Victor for a companion so that they can both be monsters together.
He does ask Victor to make him a companion, yeah. I didn't check the specific line "be monsters together,"
Yeah.
but he does ask for, like, specifically, he wants him to make a companion the same way, like, the same way that you made me,
Yeah.
essentially, so that we're the same. Um, he might ask for, like, an Eve to be for, like, because he's like,
Yeah.
I'm like Adam, so make me
Yeah.
an Eve, kind of. Yeah, he demands that Victor creates a companion for him, or else he'll murder everyone Victor loves.
Yeah. So that we'll get to this. I'm sure you're going to have this at some point because my understanding is that, and this is a cultural thing that I had heard, which is that, and having now watched the movie, this is like a big change. Is that my understanding is that in the book, the creature becomes the monster that Victor imagines him to be by
Yes.
as a result of all of the events. He gets
Yes.
turned into a monster by the world, basically.
Yeah,
And by the
we're-
end, he
we're,
is like a villain.
Yeah, we're on a nature v nurture
Yes.
kind of a trajectory in the book.
Yes, and like a tragedy
Yes.
of like, yes,
Yeah.
like a classic tragedy where he is driven to become this evil monster because everybody assumed he was an evil monster and all of these horrible things happen. But like, and so your point there of where he threatens to murder everyone Victor loves, like that is not the monster. He might say that in the movie, but you don't believe it even if he
No.
says it. He might say like, "Oh, I'll kill them." I don't remember, but
Yeah, the movie is on more of like a postmodern
yes,
bent of
100%.
like the creature's very sympathetic.
It's-
Not that he's not sympathetic in the book.
But he's sympathetic, but then he gets driven like.
Yeah.
Or sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I think the book, I think, is playing a little bit more with who we're sympathizing with and when,
Yeah.
because both Victor and the creature are sympathetic at turns and not sympathetic
Yeah.
at turns.
Yeah.
Whereas the movie is going, I think, a little bit more black and white.
The creature is entirely sympathetic the entire
Yeah.
time in the movie, and Victor fluctuates. Victor
Yeah.
has sympathetic moments and
But
less
is
sympathetic, but is mostly not sympathetic.
Mostly we don't like him.
Mostly he's the villain, but there are moments whereas and the creature, which I never expected anything different from a Del Toro movie.
No,
that is
not
Del
for a
Toro to a
second.
T.
Yeah.
Like that is just what the monsters are the good guys, the humans
Yeah.
are the bad guys. That's how his stories tend to work. Which I don't have a problem with that. I even think in this movie that dynamic could work. I could understand being disappointed if you wanted something closer to the book because I do think there's a beautiful tragedy to that idea of the creature being nurtured
I think
into the monster that
the
everybody
book is really
thinks he is.
asking questions about like the ways that we treat people and what kind of outcomes we get from that.
Because he does become the monster that kills people and stuff, right? I think he
Yes.
like kills like a family or something at some point in the book, or like a mother and a daughter. Or something. Doesn't he kill like a little girl in the book or something?
He
Somebody
kills
said
a
that.
little boy.
Or a child
Yeah,
or
a
some
child.
sort. Yeah, and like intentionally, right?
Yeah,
Like not accidentally.
yes, intentionally.
So like point being that like he does do evil things in the book that are, but again, the whole point is that he wasn't born evil, or he was.
Yeah,
He became.
He would not have been a murderous monster
had
if
everybody not.
Yeah, had
Society.
Victor not abandoned him and had he been treated more kindly, he would not have turned
Right.
into this
Yes.
this monster that he is.
Yeah, and the movie takes it and spins it and goes, no, he's just this misunderstood. He is what he is, and the world rejects him, but he doesn't become the monster that they envision him as. He maintains his humanity in spite of that, which again, I like that. I think that's for our modern day, that is a message that is important. I do think there's something interesting and compelling about the book's version, but I have no issue with the movie's take on it. I just don't think they did a great job at it. During this whole interexchange with Victor, he has another great line where he says to Victor, because Victor like calls him an abomination and obscene. Like when he asked to make him a partner, he's like, "Well, and make another abomination like you are obscene," or something like that. And the creature retorts to Victor, "I'm obscene to you, but to myself I simply am," which I thought was another great line, and I wanted to know if it came from the book.
Great line, not from the book.
Cool. Again, so it's man. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Del Toro needed a co-writer on this, maybe because he's got so much of the dialogue is that it seemingly a lot of it comes from him. So good, but man, it's the character. And again, the director's cut may fix all of this. I could actually believe that the director's cut would fix a lot of my issues with this movie. I could believe that. And then in that exact in that same conversation, we get another incredible line where as they're having this conversation, Victor says to him like, "Oh, you speak now. It's a miracle." And the creature responds, "The miracle is not that I should speak, but that you should ever listen." And I wanted to know if that line came from the book.
Not from the book, but again, like with the increased focus on parent-child relationships in the movie, I think this line works really well.
Yep. So then we get to the big moment here, which is that Elizabeth rushes in, sees the creature. They have a moment where they reunite, and then Victor grabs a gun to try to kill the creature. And at the last second, Elizabeth is like, "No," and jumps in front, and Victor shoots her and kills her. Well, she doesn't die in that exact moment, but ultimately kills her. And I wanted to know if that's what happened in the book.
That is not what happens in the
right.
book. What happens in the book is that the creature strangles Elizabeth on her and Victor's wedding night.
So he does the thing. He does I will kill everybody you love or whatever. Yeah.
And it is a truly idiotic moment for Victor because
in the book you're talking about?
In the book, yes. Because the creature had previously like taunted him by saying, "I will be with you on your wedding night," which for some reason Victor interpreted to mean that the creature would kill him on his wedding night, despite the fact that the creature had specifically threatened to kill all the people that he loved, and indeed had already killed his younger brother and his best friend.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, sure, bud. He was after you and not your wife. Definitely.
Yeah. And then in maybe my least favorite part in the entire movie, maybe, because boy, it just felt as Del Toro contains multitudes. Because some of his writing, so much of the dialogue in this.
This one was Tumblr coded.
Oh my God. So much of the dialogue in this movie, you're like, man, it's brilliant. It's poetry. It's art. And a lot of it seemingly was written by Del Toro himself. And then we get this, which is William rushes in and sees the creature leaving with Elizabeth. The creature picks up Elizabeth's body and is like going to take her with him as she's dying. And William rushes after the creature to try to stop him. And the creature like throws him and slams him against the wall, and he slams his head against the wall, and Victor rushes over, and William is like bleeding profusely from the side of his head, and Victor's like, "I can save you," or whatever, and William basically says no, like don't, like, and he tells him that he had always been scared of him and they have this like exchange, and then he gets to the end of this and he says, "Victor, to me you are the monster." And I need to know if that came from the book, because that is, it's buddy. We don't need a character to turn to Victor Frankenstein and go, "If you think about it, you're kind of the monster in this whole situation." It's just, I love Del Toro wearing his heart on his sleeve, and that his movies are bombastic and like, are not like, there's a lot of subtext in them, but most of the themes are very on the surface, and it's not like, his movies are not subtle in a lot of ways, and I do not mind that at all, because I like the style of in a lot of the stories. I really like the way that it works, and even in this movie, like lots of the exchanges, I like the way they work, but that particular line is, that would have been cut, and I would have, as a producer on the film, I would have been like, "No, can we not?" Anyways, so did you answer this already? I'm sorry. It's not in the book,
that line is not from the book. Okay. No, I mean, and it's not that Victor's monstrosity isn't commented on by the book. It is in a more subtle way, but I think that line is a pretty clear and kind of ham-fisted.
Not kind of ham-fisted. It is deeply ham-fisted.
A nod to a more postmodern reading of the novel.
Yes. I had no issue with the sentiment.
Yeah.
I thought most of the exchange, that dialogue between those two in that scene, until he says that line, pretty much covered everything we needed from
Mhm.
that. We didn't need the button where he literally just says the
Right.
point in the
And
most.
it's not like, and it's not that the sentiment's wrong.
No.
Especially like the way that Victor's depicted by the film.
Not at all.
Absolutely correct. But did we need to say it?
It would have been
point blank.
It could have been. It wouldn't have been less subtle if he had literally turned to the camera and the music had all dropped out, and he would have been like, "Don't we all think that he's kind of the monster in this whole thing?" Like, if he had turned to the camera like Deadpool, that would not have been much less subtle than what the movie actually does. Which Creature rushes out with Elizabeth. She dies. He takes her to this cave. She dies. Victor then finds the creature in the cave. He follows like the trail of blood and stuff to the cave, sees Elizabeth's body, has this confrontation with the creature. Creature breaks his nose. And his arm or finger or something like that. And basically is like, I'm going to make your life a living hell, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Which I guess in that sense, he does become the villain to Victor.
Right.
He does embrace the villain role to Victor, but not to the rest of the world like the book does. So I guess that, to be fair to the movie, it does try to keep a little bit of like, I will be the villain he might even say that exact line.
He does kill a bunch of the sailors at the beginning of the movie.
He does kill other people, but they're all people who are attacking him.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Like, yes, absolutely. That's fair.
He doesn't just randomly kill people in the movie. He does kill people, but like I said, it's all people who are like attacking him. It's all like self-defense, generally speaking. But he does, and like I said, to give the movie credit, he does actually decide like, I will be the villain that you think I am to Victor. He might even say like something basically exactly like that. I can't remember the exact exchange they have when he like breaks his nose and stuff. And then he leaves, and then Victor, were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay. And then Victor decides he needs to hunt him down and goes on this hunting expedition to the North Pole to track down and kill the creature. And I did like Victor's his like his outfit, like his hat and his whole like, he turns into like this frontiersman that I just thought was very funny. And I wanted to know if any of that, he gets like a dog sled and everything, and I want to know if any of that came from the book.
Victor does follow the creature all the way to the North Pole.
To
in
kill
this
it?
book.
Or?
Yeah, they do
okay.
this kind of like cat and mouse game after Elizabeth dies.
Okay, so yeah, that's exactly what happens in the movie. He like just follows him around and
we don't ever get a description of him looking like a woodsman.
Yeah.
But it is mentioned in the beginning that they are traveling by dog sled.
Okay. So then he catches up with the creature in the North Pole, and this loops us around to the beginning of the film again. Where they saw the explosion in the distance, and then they went to investigate. We get to see what happened that led to that explosion, which is they have this kind of face-off in the on the frozen in the North Pole, and then the creature finds a stick of dynamite that Victor had on him, and is like, "Oh, you're gonna use this to kill me? Here, light it, and if it kills me, sick, amazing. I would love for this to kill me. That would be amazing." And if not, I'm going to keep finding you and hurting you or whatever. And he backs up, and the TNT goes off, and it doesn't kill him. And I wanted to know if that came from the book.
No, that doesn't happen in the book.
Okay. That was fine. I thought that was a fun... I liked that element of it, and like the way the story looped around, and we saw that from the other perspective. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was compelling. Then we get to the ending. Final couple questions here for... was that in the book, is he's finished now telling his tale, and we catch back up. We are now back in the cabin with the creature, Victor, and the captain all sitting there. And Victor and the creature have a moment together. He walks over, and he has now told his part of the story, and Victor apologizes to the creature. They have a big exchange, and everything said in here is really sweet. And there's lots of good dialogue, and like I like the idea of this scene a lot. None of it felt earned to me. The words they were saying were pretty, but felt completely empty from everything that led to this moment in the film to me. And I wanted to know if any of this came from the book.
No. At the end of the book, Victor dies, and then the creature comes in at like appears after he dies. We
Yeah.
don't ever see them like exchange
Together.
words.
Okay.
And the creature does express some regret at what happened between
How
them.
does Victor die? Like, what happens? Like,
He just like he's been like injured and weak and
from
sick
the creature or
from
like from
chasing him.
Oh, okay.
And he's also pretty sickly throughout the entire book.
Okay.
He falls ill a lot.
When you say the creature comes in and expresses regret at what who expresses regret to who in what
The
context?
captain. The
Okay.
captain is still
so
there.
it's the same
Yeah, it's the same general
situation.
setup.
Okay. I just wasn't entirely sure. The captain did find him, and then he comes in and
Yeah.
I gotcha. But Victor is dead at that point, so they don't
Yes.
have this conversation.
They don't have this conversation, no.
Well, and that brings me to my final question then, which is again just a line question where, and because I could actually, even based on your last question, this could still happen in the book. As Victor is dying, he says, "Rest, Father. Perhaps now we can both be human." And I did like the idea here that the movie is kind of doing of how in death Victor gains his humanity, and in life, like, they have this kind of like inverted journey, basically, kind of between the creature and Victor, and Victor dying. He says, you know, like we now perhaps now we can both be human. I don't know. I liked all of the sentiments expressed in this scene and all the elements here in this final scene, but again, the setup failed so entirely to earn this payoff, where it just felt like Victor like having this change of heart felt like it kind of came out of nowhere, really. I guess the idea is that having heard the creature's story is what caused this change. Would be my guess.
So,
but I think what we don't see is any, like, if at any point during the story that we're being told, had we cut back to the ship and like seen Victor's kind of reactions to the story he was being told or something, may have helped that when we finally got back there at the very end, he like is like, "Oh, I feel bad, I'm sorry," and apologizes, and they both apologize. It just feels completely unearned to me. I don't know. I did not.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But I loved the idea of the scene. I'm like, man, had the setup for this been better, I would be bawling during this scene. It was it was kind of honestly very frustrating because like I could tell this, like the score and the performance and the dialogue itself, the words they're saying to each other. I'm like, if I had the journey leading to this moment had prepared me for this moment and made it feel earned, holy shit, this would be an incredible payoff. But because it didn't, to me, this felt hollow and empty in a way that just like it did nothing for me, which was really disappointing. But does that specific line, does that come from the book?
I didn't find this one in the book, no. At the end of the book, like I said, the creature kind of appears and he speaks with the captain for a few minutes and kind of sums up the novel's thesis.
That's what
main
happens in the
ideas,
movie too,
and then he says that he's going to commit suicide and then disappears into the icy fog.
Oh, okay.
He says he's going to light a funeral pyre and climb atop it.
So he doesn't stare at the sunset
No.
or the sunrise, and which I thought that ending was fine. I thought him like saving the ship and then standing there in the sunrise, the sun rising on his face, I thought left an ambiguity to the ending that felt fitting. And tragic and beautiful. It's just, again, that it didn't affect me at all because I didn't care much about the characters all that much. I cared the most about the creature, to be fair, because I think he is the best written in the whole thing. It's just, mainly the dynamic between Victor and the creature.
Well, no, I mean, I think you're right that it just feels unearned. At the end. It's a nice idea, but it doesn't feel like the narrative got there. In a way that works.
That makes sense for this to be happening. That was. All right, I do have a couple questions that I want to talk about in Lost in Adaptation.
Just show me the way to get out of here, and I'll be on my way.
Is it lost?
Yes, and I want to get unlost as soon as possible.
Again, this doesn't really matter, but I was just curious. And you answered this. I had to stop and ask this while we were watching the movie and I realized it was the reason I didn't understand this because I was writing a note during a conversation. Actually, I was Googling something during a conversation where this was explained to a question I had about another note that I was writing. which was at one point we see the whole scene in front of all the other surgeons where he brings the corpse to life, and it's
Yeah.
like it's not only does it like come to life, he's playing catch with it, and
Yeah.
it's like autonomous, like it you know, it's not talking or anything, but it's autonomous. It can catch, it can interact with him and all that sort of stuff, and then he unplugs it and kills it. And then later on, as they're preparing for the big one, there's this subplot of Victor having to figure out like how to do this,
Mhm.
and like how he's able to power it or whatever, and how he's unsure of how to deliver the electricity. And then at one point, while he's sitting in the bath after a conversation with Elizabeth, he has this brainwave about symmetry, because something what she said about symmetry triggered this, he has a brain blast in it, and it's like, symmetry. And then he moves how he's applying the electrodes to the nervous system or whatever in order to send the electricity in, and that this is what will work to make the creature come to life. And we see him do this, and then this creature that he has like pinned to his table like comes to life.
Mhm.
And I was like, but you've done this. I don't understand what's going on. So I was like, clear. And now I'm saying this now. We had this conversation during the movie, so I know the answer. But in case you were like me, unsure of what was going on there, what was going on there?
So I think the idea is supposed to be that the method he used to reanimate that very first corpse wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
Because then when he's talking to Harlander
Yeah.
later, Harlander
It's in
is
that
like,
scene where they're standing in front of the big
the
lymphatic
system on the board,
like on the wood board.
Yeah, Harlander is like, well, you pulled the plug on it or whatever, but in reality, it was about to die anyway, because you need a different way to deliver.
Yes.
The battery juice or whatever.
Yes, and that was I was taking some notes during that, so I missed like that exact exchange during that scene.
Yeah, and I think the implication is supposed to be that they were going to then deliver it like through the lymphatic system instead of whatever he was doing before.
Yeah, okay, and that's fine. Again, it's also a thing that doesn't really matter. I'm not that, but it was a thing where I was like, wait, what's going on? But it's explained, and I just missed it. So this was another thing that I was questioning and I still was questioning, because I don't think the movie really explains this, which is I was like, why does he use a bunch of different bodies and cuts them into pieces and then stitches them together instead of just using like one dead body that's in pretty good shape? Like find somebody who like got decapitated, sew a different head on, you're good to go. Like, you know what I mean? Like that seems like the easier way to do it. My guess from watching the film and as a result of seeing the monster eventually, and this is also probably mentioned at some point in a line of dialogue that I just missed while taking notes or whatever. My guess was that, like the goal is to build this like superhuman, because there is a point later where like Harlander says to him, like, I want you to put my brain in this new super atom that you've created. I think the idea is that they're trying to create like he's trying to create like the kind of the perfect human or whatever. And so that requires kind of combining all these different body parts, and he's more muscular and bigger and stronger than a normal human, so they need more than one body to do it. I was like, okay, I can buy that. Is that your understanding from the book, or is there any explanation in the book, or what's going on there?
So there's not an explanation of why he uses a bunch of different body parts necessarily. The implication that I got was that he's like scrounging these body parts from different places. Was that like maybe he couldn't get a full body that was in good enough shape?
Yeah.
But the book also says, as the minuteness of the parts formed a great hindrance to my speed, I resolved, contrary to my first intention, to make the being of a gigantic stature, that is to say, about 8 feet in height and proportionally large.
Yeah. I could also believe the idea that during this time period, which the book I think takes place even earlier than the movie, right? Because the book supposed to take place like in the 1700s or like early 1800s, whereas this takes place in like the 1850s and 60s.
So the letters are dated 17 dash.
Yeah.
So
1700s. So the movie takes place at least 50 years later, than that, if not 60 years later than that. I could believe the idea that the bodies he has access to, now that I think about it, that he's able to get, it would be hard to find a body that is in good enough shape
Yeah.
all across the board to just use. So he kind of, as a result, has to, because he's getting prisoners and
yeah, he's got to cobble things together
and people dying on the battlefield. So he has to cobble it together. I guess it's just, my thought was like, well, surely one of those people on that battlefield, you know, their head got blown off. Just sew another head on, but the rest of them, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just, but I could at least buy that. But also I think the explanation of, if he wants to make him like a superhuman, like this big like thing, again, kind of as an FU to God a little bit, as like this thing I'm creating is more than
it's better than what you did.
Exactly. I could buy that. And so you need, he's got, because we see that in the movie is that, and that's part of I think is very good. I know people have mixed feelings about the creature design in the movie. I generally liked it. I thought it was fine. One thing I did like about it is that I do think the creature's design does kind of tell the story in this part, because once you actually see the creature, not only his size, but the way the muscles are like layered and not anatomically like the same as humans. You're like, oh, he's adding like extra muscles and stuff that are, so he's piecing together this thing. It doesn't just look like a normal human body, but a little bigger.
Yeah.
It has this.
Yeah, it looks like something kind of human, but not.
Yeah, which I thought was cool. Yeah, again, I was mixed on it because there are elements of the design that felt like other things I'd seen in a way that wasn't my favorite. Like, he reminded me honestly a little bit of, and I think it's just his face reminded me of the fucking character from that terrible movie we did where the guy has the metal in his face, and the terrible young adult story.
Oh, Beastly?
Yes. His face a little bit reminds me of the face of do you get what, like?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember the name of this time. There's like elements of his face that reminds me of the dude's face in Beastly. It's very different. He also reminds me of the aliens from Prometheus, or not the alien, but the big at the beginning of Prometheus, which probably is not unintentional. Well, I don't know. Maybe it seems like a weird thing to. I know.
This is the modern Prometheus.
I know, but that would be an interesting thing to reference. Actually, I could see Del Toro liking Prometheus now that I think about it. That could be right in his wheelhouse, because it does have a lot to say about like religion and stuff. At the beginning of Prometheus, the pilots or whatever, they're these big like white super muscly aliens that kind of look a lot like the creature in this, which I thought was interesting. Again, I overall was fine with the creature's design, and it's heightened by the performance. I thought Jacob Elordi does a really good job with the performance. And then my final question for this, and this isn't a question about this movie because he does not have it in this movie, but I have to ask it because it's the most, like, maybe the other thing we didn't talk about. I'll ask this here too. Two things that are kind of classic Frankenstein's creature monster things. One, bolts in the neck.
Yeah.
Very classic depiction. Every Halloween costume you'll ever see of Frankenstein, he's going to have bolts in the neck. Does that come from the book? He does not in this movie, but bolts in the neck. And then the other thing, scared of fire, because that's a thing that you see in a lot of movies too, is the creature being scared of fire. And so do either of those things come from the book?
So the creature is actually described twice in the book. He's the only character that's like fully described.
Which is why we didn't have a Guess Who, I guess.
Yes.
Because it would have been the creature.
Oh, you'd have been, and
it's very obvious.
You would have immediately been like, oh, that's the creature. Yeah. Because this movie's depiction is actually pretty damn accurate.
Oh, okay.
He's described as gigantic, with long black hair, and kind of looking like a corpse.
Yeah.
The book does not mention any bolts in his neck. Okay. Though. Afraid of fire, I would say no.
Because I think that's in some of the movies from my memories.
Yeah.
That's a like kind of a cultural thing I remember about Frankenstein.
I think
creature
you're right.
monsters, that he's afraid of fire.
I would not say, because the first time the creature encounters fire in the book, he's like hiding in the woods. He's been like living in the woods, and he encounters like the remains, like the glowing remains of a fire that some other people had left behind.
Yeah.
And he is immediately like enamored with it. And once he learns that he shouldn't like grab it, he's into it. He's like, this is great. It's warm and I can cook my food.
Oh, interesting. Because my memory is, I think I saw, so I will say this: the bolts in the neck. I thought that wasn't from the book because I think I had heard that was an invention of the 1931 film, which is like the classic.
Yes, and I've never seen.
I think I have seen that one.
That's the Boris
Karloff
one,
the James Whale director.
But I'm pretty sure that movie is responsible for a lot of the like heavy lifting of our cultural perceptions of Frankenstein.
And when earlier I said I hadn't seen this, I have seen that movie, but I watched that. My dad showed that to me when I was like 5 or something. I was like a little kid and I don't remember anything about it. But one thing I do think I vaguely remember is that I think towards the end there's this whole thing where the villagers with the torches, he's like scared of the torches or something, and like the fire from the torches is like sets him off. Or I have some memory bouncing around in my head of like. At one point, there's like a scene where he's like calming down or seems to be fine, but then like somebody has a torch and that like causes him to freak out, and then he like goes on a rampage or whatever. But anyways, okay, so there you go. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think a lot of the kind of the in the way that it tends to happen, that like the first big movie adaptation, especially in these kind of same with like Dracula and stuff, where some of the more culturally cornerstone elements of this character were kind of cemented in that first big movie adaptation, similar where the Dracula and in this one the bolts in the neck and stuff like that, I think do come from the 1931 film.
All right, I have some stuff to talk about in this segment as well, starting with how Victor is depicted. So first off, I feel like it's pretty common, and I could be wrong about this because I have not seen a lot of Frankenstein adaptations, but I feel like it's pretty common for adaptations to depict Victor as like a mad scientist.
He's, I think, generally, culturally, if you ask people like what's, describe Victor Frankenstein, the character, Dr. Frankenstein, like, oh, he's a mad scientist. I don't know. Like, that would just be like, But
I would not describe him that way in the book. Like, he does do mad science. Arguably.
Yes.
But he's literally like a college kid who gets overexcited about an idea and then immediately regrets doing it as soon as it's done. He's like a baby boy who scares himself.
Yeah, which is an interesting dynamic.
Like, not like a fully grown man laughing maniacally while lightning cracks in the background.
Yeah, which is an interesting dynamic. And like, I think that could be cool. Like, I think that is a very interesting character dynamic.
Yeah.
I totally understand why Del Toro chose to go the direction he did with this.
Yes.
Because I think where he's not even so much he is a mad scientist in this, but again, it's really he's a move fast, break things, don't think about the consequences, only think about what you can achieve, how cool what you could do could be.
Which, and like, I think arguably that is what Mary Shelley was going for.
It's a similar idea, but it's just, yes.
But I think she like depicts it a little different.
Because he's younger and he's more naive and he doesn't have the foresight to realize he doesn't have the wisdom to realize what he's doing could have these horrible consequences. Whereas the Victor in this story is old enough, he's played by Oscar Isaac, who's like 40 or whatever in this. He should have the wisdom and he's been to college. He's been, he has. And so again, the movie is making a very intentional choice that I think is compelling and is a better tale for our modern day, or is a more timely tale for our modern day of commenting on, hey, maybe this whole idea where you just fucking do insane shit because you can without thinking about the repercussions and what it will mean for the things, maybe we shouldn't try to create artificial life. Maybe that has some issues that we should stop and think about. No, fuck that, move fast, break things, this is cool, I can do this, and we're gonna do this because we can and because it's fucking awesome, and damned be the consequences. Like, that is a much more timely story.
Yes, absolutely.
So I completely understand it, but I do think there's a very compelling, slightly different version that you're talking about in the book there.
Okay, so that brings me to the creation scene, and I would like to read it to you. It's very short.
Yeah.
It was on a dreary night of November that I beheld the accomplishment of my toils. With an anxiety that almost amounted to agony, I collected the instruments of life around me, that I might infuse a spark of being into the lifeless thing that lay at my feet. It was already 1 a.m. The rain pattered dismally against the panes, and my candle was nearly half burned out, when, by the glimmer of the half-extinguished light, I saw the dull yellow eyes of the creature opened. It breathed hard, and a convulsive motion agitated its limbs. How can I describe my emotions at this catastrophe, or delineate the wretch whom with such infinite pains and care I had endeavored to form? His limbs were in proportion, and I had selected his features as beautiful. Beautiful, great God! His yellow skin scarcely covered the work of muscles and arteries beneath. His hair was of a lustrous black and flowing, his teeth of a pearly whiteness, but these luxuriances only formed a more horrid contrast with his watery eyes that seemed almost of the same color as the dun white sockets in which they were set, his shriveled complexion and straight black lips. The different accidents of life are not so changeable as the feelings of human nature. I had worked hard for nearly 2 years for the sole purpose of infusing life into an inanimate body. For this I had deprived myself of rest and health. I had desired it with an ardor that far exceeded moderation, but now that I had finished, the beauty of the dream vanished, and breathless horror and disgust filled my heart. Unable to endure the aspect of the being I had created, I rushed out of the room and continued a long time traversing my bedchamber, unable to compose my mind to sleep. At length lassitude succeeded to the tumult I had before endured, and I threw myself on the bed in my clothes, endeavoring to seek a few moments of forgetfulness.
Huh.
And that's it. That's the whole creation scene.
Yeah, so very not nearly the dramatic.
No, not even close.
So that's interesting because I had heard that. I had since we watched the movie, I'd watched a video from a YouTuber I really like called Atun who does he does like a mostly historical stuff, but anyways, he had talked about this, and that was one of his. He did not like this movie, and he's a big fan of the book. And one of his complaints that he was hoping for something closer to that. He really liked the intimacy and the idea of this like young kid tinkering in his bedroom, creating this creature versus the big bombastic,
and like accidentally making the monster under his bed.
Yes, which is I think really interesting. Personally, I don't mind the movie's version. I'm all here for a big bombastic, ridiculous. Like I thought that the whole creation scene I think is a lot of fun. Issues we talked about earlier aside of like what the heck that device that broke was.
Sure, yeah.
Overall, I really like it, but yeah, no, that is interesting. It is. And that I am sure goes back to probably the 1931 version.
Yeah.
That, which makes sense. I can imagine, the screenwriter or whatever going, well, this is the big moment.
Yeah, you want a big moment.
This is the big moment.
For that.
He's playing God. How is he going to bring a body back to life? We have to show this somehow. And if you just have like it twitch to life in a dark bedroom or whatever, or dark office or whatever, it's like, oh, that's not nearly as,
Yeah, so I included this stuff in Lost in Adaptation because I think it's neither better in the book nor better in the movie. I understand why this particular movie made Victor older.
Yes.
And I understand why adaptations in general make the creation scene into a big bombastic display over depicting the book more closely. Although I would be interested in seeing an adaptation that takes that more like subtle and creepy direction with it.
Yeah.
But I could not leave this episode without discussing them because I think that like the creation scene in general, I think is an interesting and unexpected thing to encounter when you read the book for the first time, going into it with just like a general cultural knowledge of what Frankenstein is as a story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's fascinating that it is so, that's one of those things where it's like, okay, I can imagine that version, the book version of this, the director who does that is like Robert Eggers.
Yes.
That's who does that version of Frankenstein.
Yeah, and it's terrifying.
Yes, and it's all lit by like candlelight in a dank little room. And that is a Robert Eggers film. That is not a Guillermo del Toro film. Guillermo del Toro film, it takes place in a giant Gothic castle with lightning and huge, insane,
and the creature literally on a cross.
Contraptions, and the creature literally on a cross. And 100%. And which I wouldn't have it any other way. I do love, I say I wouldn't have it. Yeah. again, none of that stuff was my issue with this movie. It's really truly just the character interaction stuff. All of the big bombastic moments, and I will say though, cinematography wise, I do have a note about this later. I'm trying to remember if we.
I don't think you talked about it.
I like the way this movie looks. I didn't love the way this movie looks. I, in general, thought it looked pretty good. My biggest complaint with the look of the movie was just that, and I would have to rewatch The Shape of Water. So I looked up who the cinematographer was. Same guy that did Shape of Water and has done like all of Del Toro's most recent films. Something about the look of this movie at times, I felt like he used a lot more wide angle lenses in this than he did previously. That in a way that, which I think works because a lot of it with this is you're supposed to take in the environment and the background, and they spent all this money and all this labor on building these huge gorgeous sets, and so shooting them with these big wide shots I think makes a lot of sense. And so it wasn't even so much that, but like the lighting and color at times, while the movie is colorful, I don't know how I would have to describe. I would have to go back and literally watch and compare like some similar shots from like Shape of Water to this. I feel like my memory is that Shape of Water was richer and punchier. Like the color was like punchier in that and had and just felt denser and richer than it does in this movie.
I would have to rewatch The Shape of, because we haven't seen that since it was in the theaters.
Yes, the movie's very blue. But I would have to go back and look. But this movie was not as pretty. It's so hard to describe because the movie's gorgeous, but it's also some of the shot choices and stuff just didn't wow me in the way I was hoping. This is one that I would have to go way more like kind of scene by scene and nitpicky and be like, okay, like what I'm talking about and like show some examples. But my feeling as a whole of watching the movie was not like, wow, this is gorgeous and beautifully shot. It was, this is well shot and it looks good. And like, it looks better than most movies do these days, but like, it did not blow me away in the way that I was hoping. I really liked looking at it, but I wasn't like jaw on the floor, like, holy shit, this is a beautifully shot, like stunning film. I thought, holy shit, this is a really beautifully art directed film. I don't know if it's a beautifully shot film. It is beautifully shot. I'm nitpicking. I'm very much nitpicking. I want to stress that because it would be an overstatement to say that it's not beautifully shot. It's just maybe not shot as, I think maybe what it is that the camera work isn't as bombastic as the film feels like it should be. Like maybe that's what it is that maybe I don't know. Anyways, I'm done talking about it. All right, that was all I have to say. Let's go ahead and talk about what was better in the book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
All right, my sections are going to be pretty quick because we already covered a lot of ground in your questions.
Yeah.
But a couple of things from the book. Victor, when he's young, gets into really obsolete sciences like alchemy. And then when he goes to college, his professor is like, pardon me, you've been studying what? I was kind of sad that we lost Victor's best friend, Henry. I really liked Henry, and he was a very good friend. I understand why he's not in this particular story. Victor is always falling ill with nervous fevers throughout this book. He's a delicate lad. Another thing that I really loved was that there is random chunks of poetry scattered throughout this book, and I loved that because I just loved the reminder that a teenage girl wrote this book.
Yeah.
Because that is, and I mean this with all of the love and affection in my heart, that is such a teenage girl writer thing. Victor's reaction to seeing the creature in broad daylight after making it and then immediately abandoning it 2 years prior was, quote, its unearthly ugliness rendered it almost too horrible for human eyes, unquote. I mentioned this, but in the book, Victor actually does start building a companion for the creature, but then he changes his mind and rips it apart, which obviously enrages the creature even more.
Yeah. I wonder if I assume that's the plot of the Bride of Frankenstein movies. Maybe
Yeah.
I've never seen any of them, but yeah.
After the creature kills Elizabeth, Victor attempts to tell the local authorities about it so that they can help him apprehend it, but the magistrate does not believe him.
Yeah.
Because why would you?
I mean, sure.
And my last thing is a little nitpick about the movie. Wouldn't the dynamite have blown him to
Yeah.
pieces?
You would think. Because
it just kind of singes him.
Yeah. And it kind of like blows his fingers to pieces
Yeah.
a little bit, but not, yeah.
Like you would think it would blow him
You
up
would think
a
it
little
would blow
more.
him into chunks. If a bullet can go through him,
Yeah.
you would think that the TNT would. But again, that's one where I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
I agree. But
Like I said, it's a nitpick.
Yeah. It's one of those nitpicks that were the movie to work better as a whole, you don't even care or think about it all. It's one of those things where when the rest of the movie doesn't work as well as you want, and you're sitting there going, well, this, like, you're not as bought into like the relationships and the character dynamics and entranced by what the movie's doing, those little things start to pick at your brain a little bit more than they would otherwise. So yeah. All right, let's go ahead and find out what Katie thought was better in the movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
I thought that moving the sailors wanting to turn the expedition back and go home to the beginning as opposed to the end of the story, because that happens at the end of the story, was a nice succinct way to explain what all was going on right there.
Yeah. And also I like that it sets up the dynamic of the symmetry between the captain's white whale mission and Victor's white whale, know, and the captain seeing the folly in Victor's ways and that changing his decision, because that does happen in the book, right? Like that at the end they decide not to go back, and it is, I guess the idea is that having heard Victor's tale, he's like, maybe I shouldn't
challenge nature to this extent.
Yeah.
I like that the movie expanded on the science part of building the creature.
That stuff was all cool.
Yeah, and how he built the body, because the book really, really glosses over this one. It's literally like, after spending many months collecting and arranging my materials.
Yeah.
The book is a little bit coy about what the creature's made of.
That's fine. It's an 18-year-old girl writing it, right? It's not like she's had a bunch of anatomy classes and science classes and 100%. Like, who cares? It's also not, again, I like the movies kind of going into a little bit more depth, specifically just because it allows for some really cool kind of gnarly body horror stuff and whatnot, and just adds
and cool practical effects.
Yeah, and it adds to the kind of whole aesthetic and ambiance of the film. But
I really liked the art direction, and particularly some of the set pieces and visuals in the tower.
Yeah,
like I the creature up on the cross. Like, is it obvious? Yeah. Is it
still
incredible?
Looks fucking cool?
Yeah. And then like the giant Medusa's head staring down at them throughout the whole thing.
Yes. Yeah. In the background. Yeah. At one point, I think the creature even turns. The creature sees it at one point and is like looking at it.
Yeah.
And, Again, the art direction is stunning. I have everything, the sets, it's all gorgeous. The costumes, incredible. Yeah.
I really liked the exchange between Victor and Elizabeth when she's chastising him for keeping the creature locked up in the basement, essentially. And he says it doesn't know any better, and she says, but you do.
But you do. Yeah, I thought that was great. Yeah.
I really liked the scene with the deer.
When
the creature goes into the woods and he's like feeding the deer,
and then the hunter
shoots it.
Yeah.
And there was a kind of a suggestion that the creature was experiencing fragments of different memories, like from his different body parts.
Yes.
That I thought, it didn't really go anywhere, but I thought the suggestion was intriguing.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what the movie nailed.
As I expected, practically perfect in every way.
The story does open on a seemingly unrelated person journeying to the North Pole. I had completely forgotten that there was a frame story in this book.
Yeah.
I started reading it and I was like, who is this man?
Is frame story even the right term for that? Probably not. We're probably using that incorrectly, right?
Well, no,
maybe-
because it begins and ends with the
Yeah.
letters. I mean, it
frame
is
story probably
it's-
applies. It's just there's probably a more specific.
There probably
subset
is
of
a more,
frame
yes,
story
a more
that is-
specific term underneath the umbrella of frame
For
story.
what this story
yeah,
does,
but
yeah.
it is a framed narrative
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah. Okay.
The creature does read Paradise Lost and has an existential crisis after reading it. The creature says
Is he
that
reading Paradise Lost in the movie?
doesn't he not read Paradise Lost?
Yes,
at
he
one
does.
Point?
You're right.
Yeah.
He does. I had a quite. I have.
I mean, they talk about a couple different.
He
books,
reads a couple different books,
but
yes,
he does specifically say that he read Paradise Lost. Yeah. And the creature says that if he can't have love, he'll indulge in rage, which I don't think is the exact line from the book.
that was my intro.
Your
That was
intro
the
line, yeah, but it's pretty close to a repeated sentiment that the creature espouses in the book,
Yeah.
which is more like, if I can't be good, then I must be
Yeah.
evil.
Yeah, literally the thesis of
Yeah.
like what we talked about. It's the whole point of that the society, Victor, everybody drives this creature into becoming the evil monster that
Yeah.
that they expect him to be. Yeah. All right, we got a handful of odds and ends before we get to the final verdict. At the beginning of the movie, the shot where he punches that guy in half, or punches that guy and breaks him in half backwards
Yeah.
was fucking wild. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy.
I'm about to bring up this particular other Del Toro movie a couple times in this section, but the red veil thing that his mother is wearing in that first scene where we see them, she has like this giant
Yes.
red veil that's like flowing in the
Flowing,
wind,
yeah.
reminded me of Crimson Peak.
Yeah, we have a
couple
both have
notes
multiple
about-
notes about that.
Yeah. The coffin that they bury his mom and his dad,
They're both similar, yeah.
That coffin went hard.
Crazy, yeah. Yeah, super cool.
Also from Crimson Peak, the yellow butterflies that Elizabeth, and I don't know if it's the exact same type of butterfly, but there's a yellow butterfly motif in Crimson Peak as well.
Yeah, a similar thing. The tower's location, both outside and specifically, like when they pull up to the outside of the tower, like where it's setting, like on a hill with like nothing around
with
it.
nothing around it. It's just like this single, horrifying looking structure.
There's no trees. There's no nothing. It's just like a hill and then this thing. And then on top of that, when you go into the entryway of the laboratory in this movie, the layout of it was very reminiscent to me of the house from Crimson Peak. It is different. Like the staircase in Crimson Peak is this big like spiral staircase that runs
like
up
around the
along
edge
the
of the
outside
room.
of the wall. Whereas in this one, it has like a grand central staircase. But the just the wideness of the room,
wideness
and there
of
are these
it.
doors immediately off both sides that are like very similar to how it is in Crimson Peak, and the way it's lit, like there's this like sunlight coming down. from,
the kind of like decrepitness.
yeah,
of
all
it.
that too. Yeah, the walls are all like covered in vines,
And then
stuff.
also the basement
Yes.
part, like the underneath where he keeps the creature, looks very similar to where they keep the like red clay stuff. In Crimson Peak.
Yeah, a lot of that was like, oh, this is all is interesting. You mentioned earlier that he read Paradise Lost, but another thing we hear him reading at one point, he's reading Ozymandias because he reads the line from
the line
from Ozymandias. And I was like, wait, wasn't that written by Percy Shelley? And which makes sense because this movie takes place, like I said, 70 years after the book was written. So he could be written, yeah.
'Twas written by Percy Shelley. I guess this would be a universe where Mary Shelley did not write Frankenstein because Frankenstein is taking place in universe.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Percy Shelley still exists.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I loved Elizabeth's wedding dress sleeves.
Yeah.
If we were getting married this year, I would have sleeves like that. They would be black.
Yeah.
But That would be a thing. I'd be like, I want my arms to look like a mummy. And the bridal consultant would be like, okay. My last note here, I thought ending a Mary Shelley adaptation with a Byron quote was a choice.
Yeah, the final scene of the final frame of this before the credits is a Lord Byron quote.
Yeah,
I don't remember what
I don't
it was,
either.
but it is a Byron quote. Why is that a choice? I don't know the specifics here. I mean, I know weren't they friends? I thought they were.
Yeah, but
I didn't know if there was some drama or something.
No, not that I know of. It's just kind of it's kind of a lit nerd thing to be like Byron.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know
he
why.
He was a fuck boy.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm wondering. That's the context I need. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Like, is there some sort of thing that I mean, I can understand the idea of it feeling a little strange, but yeah, because my thought was like, well, aren't they friends? So like maybe he thought it felt relevant, and so I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay,
it's a Mary Shelley joint. End it with a Mary Shelley quote.
I get what you're saying. I don't necessarily disagree. But I just didn't know if maybe there was some added drama, like at one point they were dating and then like they divorced and there was or I don't know, like some sort of weird like falling out or something.
But like I don't know, not that I know of, but like I said, he was a fuckboy, so like maybe.
Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree that it feels kind of strange to end with that quote, but you're like, what's the relevance? Not that the quote isn't relevant, but I don't remember what it was. But I remember thinking like, oh yeah, sure, that quote feels fine here, but it is like an interesting choice to be like, okay, why are we putting a Byron quote? Yeah. All right, before we get to the final verdict, we want to remind you could do us a favor by heading over to Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Goodreads, any of those places. We'd love to hear what you have to say about Frankenstein 2025. So excited to hear this feedback, get other people's opinions. I'm sure this will be a spicy one because I have to imagine that the opinions on this are going to vary around back and forth. So very excited to hear what people have to say. If you disagree with us, agree with us, whatever, let us know. We'll talk about it on the next prequel episode. You can also help us out by heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else that you listen to our show. Drop us a 5-star rating, write us a nice little review. That will be super appreciated. Finally, you can support us at patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Get access to bonus content, priority recommendations, all that good stuff. Check it out, patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Katie, it's time for the final verdict.
Sentence fast, verdict after. That's stupid.
I was positively convinced that I was going to pick the movie until like the last 30 or 40 minutes. I was sitting on our couch for almost 2 hours thinking, oh no, I'm going to have a controversial opinion. Because I loved this movie's ideas. I loved the focus on Victor Frankenstein as a bad parent who immediately continued the cycle of abuse. I liked the reimagining of Elizabeth as a student of philosophy and science herself, even if it was a little underdeveloped. And I really loved the changes to the creature's relationship with the old man. But while I loved the ideas, the execution didn't end up working for me. The last act felt rushed, and so most of the movie's big ideas that I loved wound up in a place that felt underdeveloped and unearned. All that said, I think the movie is an interesting take on a story that has already been reimagined a lot. And Frankenstein has been reimagined a lot, to the point that the broad cultural ideas about the story and characters can feel pretty disconnected from the original text. But Frankenstein is about a lot of things. Making the thesis about parenting isn't incorrect by any stretch. It's just not going to be everyone's interpretation of the story. I didn't love the book as much as I loved Dracula. I thought it was a little meandering at times, and most of the characters felt pretty flat to me. I wanted to love the movie more than I did. While I adored the visuals and a lot of the initial ideas, it just didn't pan out in the end. So this time, I'm going with the one and only, the classic, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
There you go. My pithy letterboxd review of the film is that it, ironically, is not... it doesn't add, is not greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Is how I would say it. Is that I like all of the pieces of this, but when you sew them all together and stitch them together the way the film did, it just didn't quite create something that felt whole and complete and right. Which again, I think ironically, yeah. I'm sure I'm not the only person to mention that is a very common review of this movie, but it is, I think it's an accurate one. Katie, what's next?
Up next, we are going to be talking about Warm Bodies, which is a young adult novel by Isaac Marion and a 2013 film.
I remember hearing about this film.
I wanted to do something a little fun after this one, and then the one after Warm Bodies I think is going to take a little more energy. So I wanted to have something fun in there. And I have liked everything I have ever seen Nicholas Hoult in.
I was just Googling. I was like, I think that's Nicholas Hoult, right?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, no, that'll be interesting. I'm very excited now to see, because I never disliked Nicholas Hoult in a single thing. The director is Jonathan Levine.
Guess who plays the female lead, though?
I have no idea.
It's somebody from something we've been watching recently.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, that's her. Okay. I had no idea she was in this.
Yeah.
We'll leave that spoiler, that teaser there, and we'll talk about that in the prequel episode. That's fascinating. The director was not somebody I recognized, so that'll also be interesting. Yeah, no, I don't know anything about this movie. I remember seeing a trailer like when it came out and was like, well, whatever. It just looked like a movie. Looks like it's got okay reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, but we will get into all of that on the next prequel episode in 1 week's time, and we'll be following up on all of your feedback on Frankenstein. So please get that in. Until that time, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and everybody else,
keep reading books,
keep watching movies,
and keep being awesome.